All right. So far, we've created the store and we've passed the reducer inside of it. And we've also provided that store to the provider tag here, which is providing the store to the app right here. Now we can access the store inside the application. Okay, right now, what we need to do is connect our components to the store so we can interact with the state and get data from the state. Right now, the state is pretty empty, and this initial state is right here. So what I'd like to do is create some dummy data on this state so that we can interact with it and retrieve that data. So I'm going to create dummy data. Inside the cards, I'm going to open an object, and I'm going to say ID is 1, title is Alex, and for the body, let's go to the home.js, and I'm going to copy this lorem ipsum text and flip back to cards again and paste it here, and I will put a comma at the end of it. Now I'm going to copy this and paste it 2 times. So let's change these 2 cards. Okay, so for this one, I will say ID is 2, and the title is Wilma. We don't need to change the body. And for the next one, ID will be 3, and the title is, let's just say John. And we can delete this comma right here. All right, so we have 3 objects right here. Each one has an ID, title, and a body. So these are going to represent the different cards right here that we have currently created. Now, the card that we want to show stored in the state of the Redux store, this initial state right here. Okay, so now remember the whole idea of Redux is to have a central store of data that each component can reach out to and grab the data on the store and use it. Now what we need to do is connect this contact component to our Redux store. So how do you think we do that? Remember that second library that we installed, React Redux? And I likened it to glue between the Redux and the React. Well, this library connects our Redux store to our React app. So let's have a look and see how we can do that. So first we need to import a higher order component from that library so that we can use that higher order component in order to connect this contact component with the Redux store. So we'll say import connect from React Redux. So this connect thing right here, this is a function, so we can invoke that function to bring back a higher order component. So when we're using a higher order component, we are doing something like this. We're grabbing that higher order component, and we are wrapping the content component inside the higher order component. We are passing the contact component as an argument. And like I said, connect is actually a function, and that function returns a higher order component. So we have to invoke that, first of all, like so. And this is returning the higher order component. And then that higher order component is wrapping the contact component. Okay? So we've connected the contact component to our Redux store. It's pretty much simple as that. But we still have to retrieve the data that we want from the Redux store. So I want to bring you back to this diagram that we've, looked at in the past few videos. I think you've probably memorized it by now. If not, we're looking at it. So we've got our store here sitting in the middle, and all our data is stored here. Now, if a component wants to access that store, then what we do is we take some data from the store and we map that data to the props of our component. All right? So that's what we're going to do now. Okay, so let's see how we go about it. So right here, above the export default statement, we're going to create a function in order to do this. So this function is going to be called map state to props because, well, that's what we're going to do. So we're going to take the state and map some of that data on the state as props of this component. Now you'll see what I mean in a second, but this will have to be an arrow function. And inside of here, we will be able to get access to the state of the store. So now we can grab some data from that state and attach them to props of the contact component. Okay, so the way that we do this is by returning an object inside this function, and this object will then represent the different properties that we want to add to the props. So for example, if I want to add a property called cards, then I can add that in here, and I'm going to say that is equal to state.cards. So I'm taking the state of the store and the cards property of that store, because remember we called this property cards right here, and that is on the store state. So we're getting that from the state and we're applying it to a property called cards. And we're going to map that to the props right now. So now what we're going to do is we pass this function inside the connect function right here. So when we connect to Redux, it knows what data we want to grab from Redux. We want to grab this thing right here, this cards data from Redux state, and we want to apply that data to cards, and that is our props object. So what I'm going to do now is console log out the props inside this contact component so that we can see the cards object has been applied to the props. All right. Now, first I'm going to put props here as an argument to the contact component. And then I will say console log props.cards. And again, this cards props is this. We're calling this thing as props.cards, inside of our component. All right, let's save this, and we can see it in Developer Console. I will say inspect and open up console. All right, so here's our props, and that is a cards array, which we receive from the Redux store. Cool. So let's go to the contact component again and view all of that data on the browser. Okay, so we can remove this console log. We don't need it anymore. And we can comment out this modal and its import statement. And also comment out this div blog. All right. You can either comment out these things or delete them. That's up to you. And we can do some deconstruction here. So instead of saying props, I will remove this one and put a set of curly braces, and I will say cards like so. This will give us a cards property inside of our props object. Okay, then I will cut all of these things inside this div, and then inside here, I will put a set of curly braces. And then I will say cards.map, and that will map over the cards array, and I will call each object inside of it card. Then I will open up the curly braces, and inside of it, I will put the return statement. So this will return to us each individual card object. I will paste the div blog that we cut just a second ago. Now, remember, as we were talking about the rendering a list in the browser, I said that the all list element should have a unique key prop. Well, we can do that right here. So I will say key is equal to card.id. And remember that we have an ID property on our card object. I'll show you, it's right here. And then we also have title and body property. So let's apply all this stuff. So inside this link tag, I will say cards.title. Then I will change the route parameter as title. Now to do that, I will remove this and put a set of curly braces, and I will use backticks here. And I'll say /, then $, open up the curly braces again, and inside of here I'll say card.title, just like that. So whenever a user clicks on this title, this will allow the user to navigate a route, and that route parameter will be, well, whatever the title is. All right. Then down here, I will create a P tag, and inside of it, I will say cards.body, like so. All right, so let's save this and turn back to the browser. All right, so right now we have 3 card components that we created with the data coming from the Redux store. The cards are the things from Redux, right? But because we've grabbed those things from the props right here, we receive the data in this component, and we're cycling through data and showing in the browser. So again, all we're doing is importing this connect function and invoking the connect function down here, and then passing in this map state to props function. That returns a higher order component, which then wraps our contact component and gives it, well, superpowers and the ability to connect to the Redux store. Then what we're doing inside this map state to props function is taking the state of the Redux store right here, and we're applying a cards property to our props, and we're setting that to be equal to the state.cards from our Redux store. Well, see, I mean, it's a good thing there's visuals, right? Because if I was just going to say all that, that might be a little challenging to understand. But hopefully you get the visual, and you'll be able to work it out, because it actually does fall quite neatly into place. At first, it's going to be a little challenging, but it's good to have a little challenge. But I'm serious. Once you get the hang of it, for all these different components, and then we'll do this and practice over and over, it's going to, be like a piece of cake. Piece of cake. All right? So let's pause it right here. Go eat that cake, and I'll see you in the next section.